How's it going, everyone? This is Lana Teramae from Express Radio. Today, my special guest is the one, the only David Huff from the melodic hard rock band Giant. He's here to talk about the band's upcoming studio album, Stand and Deliver, which comes out on May 16th in Frontiers Music, so stick around for the full interview. Alright, so first things first, what can fans expect from this new album, Stand and Deliver?
You know, I think that's a good question. I think it has a lot of the DNA from the first couple two Giant records. Um, it's Giant 2.0 kind of because we have a different lineup but but yeah, it's got a little of the old Giant DNA to it, and mainly because of the songs. We went and did a lot of deep digging and found some songs that were written by my brother Dan and Mark Spiro and Van Stevenson back at that time when we wrote the two records, and so it kind of tied back all the way back to the beginning origination of Giant.
Ah, okay, so those songs that Dan wrote, those were pretty much songs from the vault, basically.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Alright, speaking of that, what was it like well, technically he wrote these songs a while ago, but what was it like having your brother contribute to the record?
Oh man, I mean, there's it's just Dan Huff, is just he's beyond talented and great person obviously, but just his guitar playing and the Giant originating, how we started the band, it was mostly about guitar riffs. That's kind of how the old original music started and was. And so anytime Dan touches a song, whether he wrote these co-wrote these songs, and he also played a solo on the record. It just has that flair that nobody can do.
He did solos on the record, for what songs?
That's for the listeners. It's a surprise. It's tucked in there. It's tucked in there so the listeners have got to go listen to the whole record and pick it out.
Okay, suspense, I like it.
Yeah.
Alright, and actually, let's get into the songs. So, couple of my favorites, the title track. Let's start with that. So, was the title track written before the album title was decided, or was it the other way around? How did that work?
I think, I mean, once we recorded the entire record, then we kind of did the process how we do it with Serafino and the label at Frontiers. We kind of listen to the record, and then we kind of pick a title from there. So it just I mean it just sounds like a Giant record. Stand and Deliver, Last of the Runaways. It just sounds like a typical Giant title.
Oddly enough, the title track reminds me of modern Europe. It's heavy, but it also has a really good groove. And actually, I think Kent, he even sounds like Joey Tempest in a strange way. But yeah,
Good
that's
call.
definitely one of my favorites.
Oh man, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's wild. Kent is. I don't know if this is another question of yours, but Kent has such a great voice, rock voice, but he's also got a lot of soul, which is kind of how we ended up picking him to be with Giant, because it just excuse me, Dan had a lot of soul in his voice too, and so he kind of matches that kind of part of rock, kind of like Paul Rogers, kind of.
And I forget what nationality but he's European with what?
Yeah, yeah,
Because I know he's
they're
not American.
they're both from Sweden. Yeah. So you got it's got the international European flair for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm guessing with all you guys being in different parts of the world, this album was probably recorded virtual online. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just for scheduling and that kind of stuff. Yeah. Like what we're doing right now, Zoom. Man, what a great invention! What a great way to communicate, and with technology, with throwing files back and forth via Dropbox and stuff, and then via Zoom, we did Zoom sessions so we could talk about sections and all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Being a music producer and knowing the different, what do you call it, the different tools that technology now has, how would you compare recording in person studio versus recording online through Zoom or with virtual technologies these days? How would you compare the two?
Well, I mean, there's nothing like, like comparing how we made the first two giant records. I mean, we actually lived in a residential studio in London. The first record for 4 months, we made a record and took 4 months and just we ate, slept, and breathed music. Um, Nowadays, it's just time constraints, budget constraints. It's just different. Um, One's not. Well, I mean, I was gonna say one's not better than the other. I mean, it's always better to be in person. But this, I mean, this is the next best thing. You can actually see somebody, you can talk. I just produced another record where the vocalist was in filming a movie in South Africa, and I had deadline to get this record done, and we did virtual sessions, on five of the songs. He was in the other songs he sang, came to Nashville, but five of the songs of the record we did, from South Africa and Nashville. The time difference was really weird. I mean, it was pretty drastic, but hey, I love technology. I've always loved it. I've always programmed stuff on our rock records and Giant. I'm a believer. Like our first single, has loops and stuff. I always love technology, so I don't mind it. Long as the record can sound good. I mean, I'll use technology.
Hmm. And going back to the songs, the first two singles, Hold the Night and Night to Remember, who was it? All the band that was it everyone in the band that decided the singles, or did the label have a say in it as well?
Well, I mean, they ask the label ask our opinions. It's a collective, but that being said, Frontiers is the kind of, to me, the leader in rock and roll music as a label, and they know radio. They just do it every single day. So, they had their suggestions, and I was, man, I didn't argue. I didn't argue with it. I was like, man, that's a great choice. And so far, the response has been phenomenal. By the way, really pleased with that.
I'm glad to hear that. And another another one of my favorites on the record is Holding On for Dear Life. I just think it's a really fun song, which is what rock and roll is all about. Can you talk more about that song?
Yeah, I believe that was one. I want to say either that was Dan wrote that with I think that was Van. I can't remember if that was Van Stevens or Mark Spiral. Rest in peace. Both those guys are great friends. And but yeah, that was one of the ones in the vault that we found, and it just reminded me, to be it when I heard it when we were listening to songs, I was like, man, we got to do this song. This absolutely reminded me of when we had the genesis of Giant, and when we were writing songs, and just about ready to get a deal and stuff, and it just evoked so many great memories of the past. It kind of just, it was wild. Just time transported us back to the 89, 88, 89. You know.
Speaking of the genesis of Giant, in my opinion, it seems like has nine lives. Like it keeps coming back for more, considering how many times it's popped up here and there with the 10-year gap, 20-year gap, whatever, that sort of thing. So, what inspires Giant to keep making music, even with the changing trends in the music industry?
Yeah, well, I got to give credit to Serafino at the label. Serafino is just his passion and love for rock and roll music. Just when rock and roll wasn't cool, like in the 92, 93, whatever, whenever the music changed drastically, he just kept at it. And Serafino's a friend, and he flew to Nashville a couple of times and talked about reviving the band, and you know just his, I think his love just really was infectious. And at a certain point, I was like, well, Dan's schedule just he couldn't fit it in. He just couldn't do it. And I said, we could do it if we do this, and he helped facilitate that, the change and lineup, and so yeah, so it's been kind of interesting. I mean, there was definitely gaps in between doing the records, and this was a quicker gap, and I think I think the reason why is I think rock and roll is the genre is coming back. So there's more of a buzz. And I mean, I just produced a band they're called the Retrograde. These young kids, they're from Florida, and they're like the Black Crows meets Kings of Leon, and they're awesome. And I'm getting more calls to produce rock bands again, and which is really exciting to me.
Speaking of the Black Crows, not to jump subject a little bit, but what did you think of Happiness Bastards? Have you heard of that record yet?
No, no, I've not heard it.
It's really good. It's their most concise record to date. It's only like 38 minutes. But yeah, there's definitely a little bit of Rolling Stones,
Yeah.
AC/DC, all the good stuff. I highly recommend that record.
Wow. Okay, I'll go check it out. I'm a massive fan of the Robinson Brothers, man. They're awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, continue.
No, no, I was gonna say, yeah, I'll have to get that. Definitely get it.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to see them twice last year. Yeah, once during Super Bowl weekend and this past December, and I'm having concert withdrawals.
Got to get back out, right?
Yeah, have you seen any good concerts lately, or you've been so busy?
Well, I mean, I don't get out to many shows. I went out. My brother and I, Dan, obviously, we work together every week on something. We work with this artist named Kane Brown, who's headlining arenas and stuff, and so we all went out to see Kane Brown the other night. So that was fun. He puts on a great show. It's like it's like a rock show, man. They've got all the flash spots. It's just massive production, and it's wild to see where he came from. Just his progression from records. I think he's got I think he counted like 11 or 12 number ones already. So country radio, which is huge. So yeah, so that was the last show I saw.
Being a record producer, has it given you a new perspective on making records? Would you say it gives you a different opinion on how you record drums, how you record guitars, or does it kind of make you even more of a perfectionist since you know all the behind the scenes, that sort of thing? Tell me more about how being a record producer has made you see things differently when recording giant records.
Yeah, I'll speak for myself and Dan. We grew up in this recording studios, right, playing on countless records and working with some of the industry's most successful, famous producers. So unless you're just are not there physically or mentally, in which to me and Dan, it was, no, we are always there. We were just sponges. We grew up in the studio, so we sponge every idea. We watch, we learn, we ask questions, and so working with some of the best producers in the world, we really learned the art of making records. And so I equate that to growing up in the recording studios and like continually just making different every kind of genre. It doesn't matter. You still the TLC and the making records in the time and in the vision that you have to make songs and honor the song and like do what's right for the song and the vocalist. So yeah, I mean we approach records like that. We listen to the song and just how do you best dress that song? What do you do to not take away from the melody and how do you build that to where you want to play it again, you want to put it on repeat. So that's kind of the goal as a producer. But we learn from the best. I mean, the best of the best. We work with Mutt Lang. We work with them. You name it. We work with these guys, and it's like, oh, that's the secret to making great records.
Yeah, I mean, the list goes on and on. Andy Sneap, Martin Birch, for
Yeah.
sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're all geniuses in their own right. They all have their own flavor and their own way to approach things. And for us, we learn from everybody. We take a little bit of this and that from everyone that inspires us.
Speaking of inspire, this record's a little bit different because in, we now have Jimmy Westerlund. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so he does the guitar part. So what inspired this? Well, what led to this change? Better word for it.
You know, we worked with a John John Roth for many years, even before Giant. And John's a really good friend and great guitarist from Memphis, Tennessee. And we when we were scheduled this Giant record, he had schedule conflicts with Winger. He was doing a couple records and touring like almost full time with Kip, so it just did the schedules didn't line up. It wasn't anything personal. It was just like it's unfortunate. But at that being said, Serafino called and said, I got a guy that I think would be good for this lineup. And I said, okay, so we got sent a couple songs and then chatted with him on the phone. It's like, oh my goodness, this guy, Jimmy, what a great player. I mean, what a great player. So yeah, so it was a change brought on by necessity, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, his playing on the title track is part of one of the best parts of the title track.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's a monster. He's a monster, dude.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so I just want to get your opinion on this, considering that Giant doesn't have the same lineup they started with in the late 80s. What are your thoughts on bands that constantly change band members? Obviously, you have Whitesnake and Megadeth, but what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, like bands like Journey, I mean, like you said, all the bands. I think the best thing is to keep the legacy going, and I think it's just natural evolution. Sometimes members, if they don't get along, sometimes it's just schedule conflicts, and in our case, every one of our cases, it had nothing to do with conflicts. Just, I mean, for personalities or anything like that, it just had to do with schedules and trying to make sure that we could get something done and just find the next person up. And I still think we're trying to keep the genesis together as far as like the sound and I've gotten the response many times. Giant isn't anything without Dan Huff, and I love everybody's opinions. Every opinion matters. Every opinion, there's no right or wrong. It's all subjective and what people think. Some people don't think Van Halen was as good with Sammy Hagar, and I disagree. I think they're both good. They don't replace one another; they just become different.
I mean, personally, not to start a debate or anything, I know that David Lee Roth wasn't the best singer in the world, so I always leaned a little bit more towards Sammy Hagar just because he has that amazing rock voice that added on
Melodic,
more commercial appeal.
yeah, melody was definitely different. That, but David Lee Roth was a crazy hell of a performer. So, you get you just they're just like it's like apples and oranges. You can't really compare them. They're both good. They're just different. You know.
Yeah, I'm all about when I don't mind when bands change their sound. That's another thing that I was going to bring up in terms of bands changing members. I don't mind the changing members just as long as they continue making new music and they continue to promote new music that they're working on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you can continue.
No, I was just I totally agree with that. Like just the evolution of music is always a part of everything. The industry changes, and lineups change, and it's just our love and passion for doing making music, and hopefully when we make records in this, I know that with my brother not being in the band, it evokes both emotions, like, I mean, it's not with anything out of genre. Like, I like it. I like that you continue. It's, as long as we keep making records and the response, if we get good response, we'll keep making. If people enjoy what we do, we'll make more. That's the name of the game.
I definitely think it helps that there's only a 3 year gap between this
I agree.
record and the previous record. Definitely gave people something to look forward to sooner rather than later. Because I don't know if you're aware of this these days. Actually, you probably are aware of this these days, but people's attention spans are not very good. So I think it definitely helps that there's only a few years gap between this
I
record
agree.
and the previous record.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, I mean the consumption rate is high, way quicker and more demand, and if you wait too long, it's out of sight, out of mind, right? Pretty much. So I totally agree with you.
Definitely. Are there any other tracks that you wanted to mention for?
Um, no, I mean, you mentioned the right songs. That's it's funny that because I like all the songs on the record. I love the connectivity, the common thread, bringing some of the older written songs back to life because it resurrected a lot of emotion and a lot of there was such a great era during the late '80s and early '90s of melodic rock. I don't say it was better than anything, but it was a really good time, in the creative space. So no, I mean I think audience should enjoy most of the record. I mean all the songs are just, to me, we spent a lot of time picking the songs. So um, I think all of the songs they fit on this project really well to me.
And a lot of these songs they have that stadium rock anthem. So can we expect a tour from Giant anytime soon to promote the record?
We are talking about that. It's a funny subject because people, have asked, how come we don't tour it's very hard to tour when, well, my schedule, I produce many records a year, like a lot. And the demand hasn't been quite as big. I don't know why, but doing a show here, one or two there, it's really hard to schedule that in. So, but the more we get asked to tour there's been a lot of requests in Europe. So hopefully we can put a tour together where we can actually go out for a month and make it make sense. Those things have to line up. And every interview I say, man, the fans demand it, and the label, they'll help facilitate, make it happen. We would love to, because we played. I don't know, a few years back, a friend of ours lost his house in Tennessee due to a fire, and his favorite band was Giant. So we were asked to help on a charity, and so we played 3 songs. We got a different singer to sing, of course, and Dan called me the next morning and he goes, "Man, did you have as much fun as I did?" And I was like, "Man, oh my gosh, it was like riding a bike. The muscle memory was just absolutely, it was like we hadn't taken any time off at all. It was really special, really cool."
I mean, there are bands that just continue to make records, but I feel like being a musician, it's all about the playing live.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you could spend all your time in the studio, but it's all about that live feel. And definitely the European scene, the rock scene is more stronger in Europe than the US. So I hope tour plans for Europe, they definitely come together eventually because
absolutely. Man, from your lips to God's ears, we would love that. So it would be great.
definitely. So besides future planning events, planning shows, events, that sort of thing, what else can we expect from Giants going forward?
Well, hopefully more singles from this record. So far, the response has been great, been fantastic, and we couldn't be more pleased. It's when you put out a record, you never know what the response is going to be. So and this one has been really incredibly positive. So hopefully more singles, and then we're in stages of talking about doing another record. So hopefully between that and talking about the new record, we can get a couple dates. Maybe late this maybe in this fall in Europe would be really ideal.
Just curious, do you happen to know what the next single will be?
I don't, and if I did, I would say it. I have nothing to, no reason not to tell you. But no, we don't know. Like you said, they always go, we're going to do 2 singles for sure, and then just depending on the response, they're going to see what goes out next. So hopefully they all the fans kind of post about stuff and just kind of respond, because that does drive the label for sure.
Yeah, I would say Holding On for Dear Life should be the next single. No, just joking.
Right.
Anyways, yeah, so I want to, David, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you spending part of your day with me.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate your kind words and your support for the band. And if it was up to me, I would tour in Hawaii. Just saying, it's God's country.
Yes, give us some rock and roll energy because that's definitely missing here in Hawaii these days.
I know. Well, like I said, thank you for your support. I appreciate that in any support for Giant. That means a lot for I'll speak for the band. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for this. Thank you for this lovely chat. All right. Well, you have a lovely rest of your day, David.
That you as well. Thanks so much. Have a good one. Okay.